Good morning, everyone. My name is Elisa Udaskin, and I am a career specialist in career services at JVS, Jewish Vocational Service, and we're located in East Orange and Montclair, New Jersey. So a little bit about JVS. JVS was founded in 1939, and we help people overcome obstacles to finding employment. We help them get back on their feet and get jobs. Our JobSeekers program, which this webinar is part of, is fully funded by the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West and by Project M, and we thank them both so much for their support to make this program available at no charge to all of you. So this morning, I'm delighted to welcome back our guest speaker, Deb Krawiec. Deb is a national certified counselor. She is the founder of Arrow Career Consulting, LLC, and is an insightful career consultant and counselor. Deb has worked with all levels of employees and brings to her consulting sessions not only knowledge of job search strategies, but an understanding of the business world. Deb has worked in the field of outplacement for over 20 years, working for two of the top firms, Lee Hecht Harrison, LHH, people may know it as, and Randstad RiseSmart. Deb is skilled at and passionate about helping clients manage through the experience of job loss while guiding the job seeker through the journey to find their next career and or job opportunity. So I'd like to welcome Deb. Over to you.
Thank you, everybody, and good morning. Good morning. Welcome. I see that folks are still signing in, so we'll start officially in a couple minutes as I just again want to welcome everybody and say thank you for being here. I've been at this presentation for a number of years helping this organization, and it's always a pleasure to be able to come back and to provide information that I hope will help with your career journey. So today's topic is elements of a winning interview. So let us begin here. And so what I'd like folks to do this morning is that if you could learn one thing about interviewing, what would it be? So again, as folks continue to join us, for those folks that are already present, please provide in chat one thing that you would like to walk away today in gaining some information to help your interviewing skills. So I'll glance over to chat and see what we have. Okay, active listening, read the interview, words not to use. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is really terrific feedback from the audience. And a lot of what I'm reading about here, we will be able to obviously address here in today's presentation, and I'll try to be mindful to zoom in, no pun intended, on some of the specific asks here in chat. And certainly we do allow for some Q&A after today's presentation, but also what was mentioned is that we will make available some practice today. So this will give an opportunity for us to really put in practice some of the STAR methodology that I'm reading about here in chat. This is terrific. This is terrific. Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think folks are still responding. That's great. All right. You're at the right place, folks. You're at the right place. Let's see here. So today's agenda, we're going to start off with just a quick review of the market. Because why? Because we need to understand what's happening in the market so we can land that interview. So we're only going to spend a couple minutes on a quick review. And again, we need to, a savvy job seeker must always be attuned to what's happening in the market so they can align their skills and experience to what the market trends are. So we're going to spend a couple minutes on that. We're going to also talk about the pre-screen as it's related to AI. We're also going to talk about the mechanics of the interview. We're going to break it down into these various elements. And then, of course, we have some sample questions, some practice. And there will be a handout that will be provided at the end of today's presentation. As mentioned earlier, I will be in presentation mode. And we will be taking questions at the end of today's presentation. If there's anything urgent, I know will be brought to my attention and I'll address it in that moment. But for the most part, we'll hold our questions for the end of the presentation. So let's just start off by just talking about where we've come from. Okay, so we know that we're coming off a pretty robust market. We've had 7.7 million jobs added. There has been a slight increase in wage. Low levels of employment overall were what we had been experiencing. Again, some slight increases in pay, lower inflation, however, not completely solved, of course, as we know, and above trend economic growth. And again, these references or these statistics will be shared with you also in the handout as referenced lower in this PowerPoint. And so the projections for 2025, and again, why we're spending a couple minutes here is because we need to know what's happening in the market so that we can land those interviews. Why? So that we can create those resumes tailored to the skills and experience that the employers are needing. So we know that the projections are the technological changes, the green transition, and the geoeconomic fragmentation and the shifts. So again, and here as listed here are a list of some of the fastest growing jobs. And again, in the handout, there'll be links to these sources. So the new year started off in January. There are some challenges for the job seeker. We know that. We pay attention to the news, but again, as savvy job seekers, we just need to understand that there will be some challenges ahead for ourselves. We are looking at potentially some government layoffs. We know the government is one of the major employers of our economy, so there will be some tightening of some job opportunities. Realignment, though, always realignment. There's always a shift, right? Where there's a decrease in one, there could be a shift into an increase in another industry. So again, awareness, folks, awareness. And then for those folks that like to work at home, we need to start rethinking that. So again, there are some challenges, but honestly, we're going to persist and land that interview, right, folks? We're going to persist and land that interview. So to land the interview, you must understand the market trends, the skills in demand, the industry's positioned to expand, and certainly the industry's position to shrink. Okay. And this way, when you create the resume, you work with your coaches here, you look at your own skills and experience, and you become knowledgeable as the year begins on what the challenges may be, and of course, how to work to overcome it so that you can get in front of the hiring manager. So let's break this interview process down and let's demystify the process. The purpose of the interview certainly is, can you do the job? Can you do the job in the organization in which you're being hired? And of course, can you do the job with the people hiring you? So again, success is dependent in cultural fit, getting right. Is this an organization in which you can flourish? You're on the interview, they're evaluating your skills and experience, but folks, you're evaluating also fit at your end as well. Okay. And again, I saw in chat that some folks had talked about creating stronger STAR statements. Again, the alignment and the self statement so that we can prove in that interview that you not only say you've got the skills and ability, but that you're proving it through your story. So we're going to talk about that today. So before the official interview process, there's the pre-screen. And the pre-screen is the phone rings. We end up picking up the phone there. Maybe we can schedule that pre-screen. Maybe we have to get it in the moment. But obviously that pre-screen determines if you're going to go into that official interview process. So the purpose is very clear. It assesses your skills and experiences, determines if you have the basic skills and experience. And by the way, the chemistry, that feel during that phone screen to allow you to meet the hiring manager. The goal, obviously, for yourself is to deliver with confidence your positioning statement tailored to the position. So again, always have at the ready your positioning statement. The positioning statement is otherwise known as your pitch, the elevator speech. Deliver your exit statement with no apology. Exit statements often reflect a statement of reflecting that your organization is undergoing restructuring, repositioning of skills and experience, and as a result, you and a number of other positions were eliminated.
So Deb,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so exit statement, what that means, when they ask you why you left your last job, is that what that means?
Yes,
Exit
and
statement? Okay,
thank you. Thank you for
thank you.
asking me, and whomever, if somebody had written that in chat, I want to thank you for bringing that to the attention. I know we have an audience here that has, some folks might be new to the job search, some folks might be seasoned job seekers, some people might be coming here to refresh on your existing skills. So thank you for saying that we should make no assumptions that people understand that terminology. To what we just stated, the exit statement refers to how we want to communicate our transition. And so again, it's a one sentence statement that the listener, the interviewer, can hear as to why you are seeking a new position. Okay. So provide enough sell to land the second interview. So again, the goal of the pre-screen, there's a lot to do in this pre-screen, and body awareness. So again, when the phone rings, we advise that you stand up. You get more energy when you stand up, okay? And you can hear a smile, remain positive, check where your energy is, limit your hand gestures if this pre-screen happens to be on Zoom, okay? Or any other technology that might provide some visual cues as to how you are reflecting your responses. Understand language. I know that again in chat, some folks had mentioned about using the right language. Some folks mentioned about using the right body language and gestures. This is all very important. And as you'll see, as I continue through this process of presenting today's information, you'll see that I often mention that having a mock interview also helps us to view how we are delivering our message. So we want to be organized. So in the phone screen, so ideally, if we can plan it in advance, we do want to dress for the call. I'm a stickler about proper dress. And not only am I a stickler about having you dress appropriately, and I don't mean you have to sit in your house in a suit, but just make sure that maybe that day we're not wearing our sweatpants, right? Or our PJs. Make sure that you've got something business casual, and I always encourage my candidates to put their shoes on, their dress shoes. Okay, it sets us in a mindset, right? So make sure that you wear your proper. I'm a stickler on that because it sets the internal tone. So have the job posting in front of you, have your resume in front of you. Again, ideally, if you can plan the phone screen. Sometimes the phone rings and we're asked to immediately engage in a conversation. And what I also encourage clients to do in that moment, that if the phone rang and there's an employer and they're trying to engage you in a phone screen and you are preoccupied, maybe you're with the children, maybe you're at the dinner table, maybe you're out and about, it is okay to try to reschedule that phone screen. You have one shot at making an impression. And so you want to make sure that you utilize that opportunity to sell yourself in the best manner. So it is okay to say, may I take this call in an hour? Can we reschedule to later today? As you hear, there's some background noise and I'm at a location where I may not be able to fully place my focus on this call. So again, giving permission to make sure that you put some control in this so that you can have the posting in front of you. You can place the resume in front of you. So always ask about next steps after you conclude your phone screen. Send a thank you note. Sending a thank you note has never harmed anybody, but it certainly can have you stand out from the rest by simply thanking the employer for that initial conversation and expressing interest in continuing. Always stay away from the salary question as well and stay positive. Wow, AI, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. We can't do a presentation in job search without the infusion of AI. And it's becoming more and more immersed into the job search process and hiring process, as we know. So the pros and cons. So we know that obviously AI saves money. That's why we're here. It saves money. So it does provide an opportunity to manage the communication to the candidates in a succinct manner, more efficient manner. Maybe we're getting those auto responses. Sometimes we're not even getting those auto responses. So then, okay, maybe they need to adjust their AI. But again, AI overall is there to increase the level of efficiency for the recruiters. Now, the downside, it lacks human judgment, can feel impersonal, it can overlook talent, and there are some unintentional biases. So we understand what we're up against. However, when we look at the AI process, given that I can't change what I just expressed on the previous screen, where we're the unintentional biases, the feeling of it being a tad impersonal, we still need to follow suit and engage in that pre-screen. So in most cases, obviously it could be a video format. And again, we need the computer or cell phone with your camera. Now, what's interesting about AI is that it does examine the facial expressions, and it also not only evaluates expression, it also does language analysis. So again, this is very interesting, this research that I conducted on AI. And so it can identify if we are truly expressing what? Genuineness or enthusiasm to a degree. So it studies our facial expression. So, and again, what's the purpose? Just as any interview, is how we express our successes. It's supposed to be an indicator of future behavior. So again, we want to watch our pace. We want to watch the language that we use. And we want to make sure that our words are action oriented. We don't want to use passive language. And we want to be careful about our sentence structure. Now, what's interesting is that as I read all that, when I think about the tips that I can provide to the job seeker for the pre-screen using AI, they're pretty much the same, right? So again, you want to prepare your responses. You want to make sure that you give some time, in this case, to reflect on your responses. And when it comes to AI, you want to pause because you want to give the system a little chance to reset. Again, stating your results using the STAR process, be brief, be concise, use the language within the job postings, and of course, being mindful of your body language. So again, even though with AI, there are some challenges, when we think about prepping for it, there seems to be some common threads that run through just taking a traditional phone call versus when we infuse AI into the process. So the overall stages of the interview: preparation, introduction, dialogue, closing, and the follow-up. So here we go, the preparation. So first we want to compile a list of our key accomplishments. So what I like candidates to do is to take your resume. Now your resume should reflect your accomplishments, right? So look and study that resume and think about the skills and competencies that those accomplishments reflect. And there might be some accomplishments that you may not have, what do I want to say? In some cases, you may not have listed all of your accomplishments, because the truth is we have to maintain our resumes up to a 2-page document. But when I'm preparing for an interview, I may want to expand on my accomplishments. Now, how do I do that? I list my competencies, and then I reflect on each of those jobs. So if I have my resume in front of me, I look at each of those jobs and I reflect, where is it? What did I do? What actions were I involved? What situations did I face? What tasks did I identify or was I involved with? What actions did I take, or what actions was I involved with that led to some results? So again, writing this out. Now here again, we said review resume. The exit statement comes up again. And also to look at gaps. So it's important for me to review my resume and to see if there were any gaps. And if there were any gaps, I need to create the story as to why there was a gap. Needless to say, we all experienced the pandemic, and maybe during that time, you did not find any remote work. And so what you want to just say is, well, That was the time during the pandemic, and during that time, opportunities were limited. And I spent my time what? Caring for my children. Maybe I was investing in a course. Explain what you might have done during that time period. If there's a gap because from one position to another, then you want to just state that during that time period you were seeking a position. But if there's any training that you might have engaged in, volunteer work, you might want to create that story. The word exit statement or that phrase comes up again. So again, you want to make sure that you have at the ready a statement if indeed there was part of a restructuring due to your position was eliminated along with a number of others due to restructuring, that statement rolls off the top of your mouth, right? Rolls off the top of your lips, okay? And then therefore the time that you spent, you engaged in. The good news of the day is and again, having been in this industry now for over 20 years, last year I celebrated my 30th year in this business. And if you go back 30 years for anybody that's been walking this earth 30 years ago, transition was a time when we hid the fact and the stigma was great. Years later, you can still find some stigma, but not to the extent. So please hold your head up high. You've done nothing wrong. Jobs in this day and age come and go. The world of work is temporary, and this is the way business is conducted. So have that statement at the ready and put your eyes forward on your opportunity, okay? So in preparing for the interview, again, make sure you understand who you're interviewing with, their role, their responsibility, and make sure that you've got their name and that you understand the type of technology they'll be using. If it's in person, obviously where you're going. If it's virtual, prepare your space. Okay, be clear again, as I stated, on the technology that they're utilizing. If it is a remote interview, do a little research on that company. Trust me, you'll impress them if you do some research, okay? And research the person or people that you're meeting with. Go on LinkedIn, look at their work backgrounds, educate yourself on the process of who you'll be interviewing with, right? So again, as I stated, preparing for the interview, again, to repeat, utilize LinkedIn, select what you'll be wearing, practice the interview response. I noticed that in chat, somebody had asked what to wear. I don't think you can ever go wrong by wearing a jacket, but you could go wrong by coming in too casual. So it is always better to have the suit jacket and I'll say dress professionally, unless otherwise you are instructed not, if they state that this is business casual and that a suit isn't required, then I would still say then obviously you're not going to wear a suit or a jacket, but I would still be mindful that the attire that I am dressed in is crisp and appropriate. So again, prepare what to bring in advance if there is anything needed. As I said earlier, scheduling a mock interview is always so helpful because we could write those responses out. We could practice it, hopefully maybe with ourselves in front of a mirror. But when I have another human being in front of me and I'm trying to connect what I wrote on that piece of paper to the words coming out of my mouth, it's a whole different experience. So a mock interview could be so powerful. And of course, research salaries, not because we're going to discuss salaries, but you just want to have that education. Arrive early, again, common sense. We want to arrive early, be courteous. I say the interview starts as soon as we pull into that parking lot. You don't know who you're going to run into in the elevator. You don't know who you're going to park next to. So be mindful that there are influencers everywhere around you. So as soon as you pull into that parking lot, provide a strong handshake, good eye contact, engage in safe, small talk. So again, now if it's virtual, some folks here, this might be something that you're already aware of, but there might be folks here for the first time in job search. Maybe they haven't been in job search for a while. Maybe the introduction of a virtual interview seems a little unfamiliar. So if you are out in that audience and that is you that I'm speaking to, make sure you look right to the camera. So I'm presenting to the camera. I'm not looking at the folks here so that you can see that I have eye contact with my audience. So we have to get accustomed to that. Okay, so to looking at the camera. So when you're on an interview and somebody asks you a question, you want to again look at the camera, not at the boxes, or look down like I just did. Do you see that? Okay, attend to your state of mind. We're all nervous. We all can get ourselves worked up a little bit, right? I'm breathing myself now. I'm breathing myself. Okay, just check in, folks. Where are we holding our energy? Where are we holding our posture? Right? So on an interview, we can get ourselves, wow, we've got a lot of anxiety. Maybe we haven't been at an interview for a while. Maybe we've been at a million interviews, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's a lot riding on this, maybe. I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna check in, see where I'm at. I'm gonna check my posture, right? Hold myself up high here, right? Breathe. So during the dialogue of the interview, all right, there's structured and unstructured questions, right? So we're going to listen, right? Somebody mentions in chat about active listening. To be an active listener means I have to speak less, right? I have to speak less. So I'm going to listen to the questions and I'm going to maybe rephrase to make sure that I am clear on the question if I need clarity so that I can respond to that question in the best possible manner. I'm going to connect my skills to the organization's needs. Why? Because I've done my homework, right? I know what they're looking for. So every story that I give, I'm connecting my skills to the employer's needs. I'm not going to go give too much information, which I have to be careful. I don't want to go off on a tangent. So I'm going to stick to STAR. I'm going to explain the situation, the tasks I was involved with, the actions we took, or I took, that led to the response, and it led to the result. Boom, done. Keep that in mind. I'm always going to speak professionally about my previous employer. I'm going to put that on the back burner. I'm going to show job readiness and emotional readiness. Takes a little work, I understand. And I understand maybe for some it's not easy, and there's good days and bad days in job search. I understand that. But on the day of that interview, I'm going to be up and I'm going to be positive and I'm going to leave all that on the back burner. And when I come home, I can revisit it if I want. But on that interview, I'm going to be up. Be aware of your posture, as I said. Check in with yourself right now, folks. Where are you holding your posture? It's amazing how different we feel when I stand up versus down. Up energy, slump, low energy. Maintain eye contact, and be careful about nervous fidgeting. In this picture here, you see the hands open, right? So there's an expression, a positive expression. After I express, man, I'm going to collapse. After I express, then I'll place my hands down. So expression is certainly necessary, and it's a way to show enthusiasm, right? So answering the question, there's this traditional model and strategic model. And so if I get in my mindset that I'm just going to be there answering a bunch of questions, which I am going to be there answering a bunch of questions, okay? But how do I take control of that in a way to sell myself is to think in my mind more a strategic model. And that is that we are here to learn about each other. I have skills and experience, and you have need. And if my skills and experience line up, then we can create a relationship here that's mutually beneficial. How is that, folks? Okay. So creating in my mind that this is a conversation and a flow between the employer and myself. And it's really about a common fit. Okay, so discussing their needs and connecting the relevant skills. You see in this model, it says responsibility for outcome is when I apply STAR, I'm leading my listener to hear the results of my good work. The results of my good work. I've often described an interview is really about checking in the believability of what you've said that you have and have done in your career. So folks, no matter where we are in the interview process, if I'm on Zoom or I'm in person, I've mentioned this once, I've mentioned it twice, now I've mentioned it 3 times, energy check. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. So tend to your state of mind, because nothing communicates more clearly that you are enthusiastic, willing, and have the skills and ability to do the job than how you use your words and your body to express your responses. So tend to your state of mind, be mindful of your self-talk. Questions can be traditional and behavioral. And again, as I reflect on chat and think about some of those responses that came in earlier when we started the presentation, people had said learning about how to answer the behavioral interview questions, that was a good ask, because the traditional questions again are simple, yes, no, pretty straightforward, right? Did you like working where you were the last 10 years? Yes, I did. Or no, I didn't. Okay, that's a pretty straightforward question. But here's the behavioral questions. Focused on how you perform. And that's when we really engage that STAR process. So again, here are some examples of some of those traditional interview questions. So what did you like best about your last position? Pretty straightforward. Did you have any trouble with your coworkers? Yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Right? What motivates you? Okay, so again, any of these traditional questions can be turned into a behavioral interview question, you see. So have you ever had trouble with your coworker, or can be turned into tell me about a time when? Okay. But these are, if somebody is asking you this, then you know it's a traditional question. And what are your strengths and weaknesses? That's my favorite question to ask on every interview. It tells me how much a candidate has prepared, how much they've looked inside themselves, especially when it comes to the weakness. I have no weaknesses is definitely not a response any hiring manager wants to hear. So folks, I challenge you, if you haven't answered that question, and there's the proper way of answering that question as well. I'll give you a hint. We don't want to pick a weakness that's related to the skill and experience that you're getting interviewed for. We'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so now we're on to the behavior interview questions. So that's when we apply the STAR. Okay, so situations you faced, task you identified, action you took, result you achieved. You're connecting your skills to an accomplishment. Well, this is good timing too, because we're coming close to the end of this segment. So that's good. Okay, so folks, we're going to address the questions, which is great. Closing. So after you create your STAR, okay, or after you conclude the dialogue, let me better state. After you conclude the dialogue, there is the closing segment. And that's where you formulate your questions, you ask any prepared questions, you clarify next steps, you find out where you are in the lineup of the interviews, you restate your interest in the position, and you provide a strong closing statement, summarizing your value. This is important. You want to make sure that you end strong, giving them a strong handshake, expressing to them your enthusiasm and interest for this position, and how you'd like to be considered for the next level of interviews, should that be what the discussion was, of course. And some examples of some closing interview statements are right here as well. Okay, why is the position open? How soon will the decision be made? Please, we get so excited or I don't want to say we get so excited, maybe we get relieved when the interview is over, that we forget to ask what our next steps. When I work with clients, they go, I didn't ask. I understand that. But how soon will the decision be made gives you an opportunity to follow up. So if they say within a week, that means when the week goes by and you haven't heard from them, there's a reason to reach out just to touch base, to see if there's any additional questions that they may have, if any decisions have been made for moving a candidate forward. So again, we always want to ask how soon the decision will be made. How will success be measured for the person in this role? This also is a very good question as well, okay? So after the questions, then we come to follow-up, sending a thank you note, create each thank you note specific to the questions. So sometimes folks say to me, is a thank you note necessary? Just like I get the question, is a cover letter necessary? Well, a well-written cover letter, just like a well-written thank you note, is an opportunity for you to reset, to emphasize why you should be considered a strong candidate for this position. When it's well written and it connects your skills and experience to what the employer is looking for, then it can never hurt. So again, timing also is everything, especially on the thank you note. So sending it out immediately through email, making sure that you've got the email addresses is very important, which I know that you may have, or you at least can look up on the website, because most organizations, if you have one person's email, you can usually recover the other people's email because the company, they have standard email formats. So again, it's a good practice to send a thank you note. And of course, after the interview, always continue to develop your opportunities. We get excited, we think we might be selected. In our mind, we're already thinking that we're there, we're working, thinking how life is going to be. And that all could be a possibility. But we want to make sure we create a safety net for ourselves. So make sure that that job, your job, the next day is to continue to develop the opportunities. So practice builds confidence, and this is where we're going to be practicing. So you're going to be invited to practice your responses. So we're going to now engage in an exercise where you're going to have an opportunity to answer some of these questions and see how you do. We're going to ask for up to 4 volunteers to come forward and share their responses. And when formulating your responses, you're going to keep in mind the STAR approach and keep your responses to 2 minutes.
So have you worked with someone? And if so, how did you handle it? And so we're asking everyone, tell me if I'm right here, Deb, that we're asking everyone to take a minute or two to write down your answer for that, right? And so everybody can sort of write your own answer, take a couple minutes, and then we're going to ask for a volunteer who wants to share. So everyone can do this exercise, right?
Correct. That is correct. And then
Okay.
when we have our one volunteer,
Yeah.
who is that brave volunteer that comes forward and shares their response, we will be able to critique in a safe space that response. And as a result, I hope you'll be able to critique your own response up
Ex
against how we critique that individual's response.
Mhm.
So again, this is the safe zone, folks. Practice makes perfect. This is where we build our confidence. Okay. So everybody answered the question. Have you worked with someone you didn't like? If so, how did you handle it? Now, the hint on the bottom tells you what the hiring manager is looking for. How well do you get along with others? So again, if I'm creating my response, okay, I'm going to create a story, hopefully a story that's truthful, right? Of how maybe I did have a little conflict with somebody, but maybe how I resolved it. Because remember, think about the STAR formula. It brings me to a result. So so the other way of looking at this question is, did you have conflict with somebody? How do you define a difficult person? How do you resolve tension? So you see that how do you resolve tension? That's the result piece, folks. So what I'm looking for as a hiring manager, and I know folks have been out there, you've hired folks. How do you, because if you come into my organization, I know those, we're human beings. So I want to know your style. So that's what this question's about. Make sense? Okay. So folks, reflect for a moment, write it out, write your response. We'll give this a minute. Okay. Now this is the safe zone. All right. Write your response, and then you'll have a chance to review your response up against the critique that we do up against that brave volunteer. All right. I'm going to go to the next. So I think we all know the question. And this is how we're going to provide constructive feedback.
Okay, so we have a volunteer. So Deb, I just wanted to make sure that we, okay, so Olga put her example in the chat, but Abby said she'll volunteer. So Olga, you can go the next one. So we'll go with Abby if you'd like to share, please.
Sure. I'm not gonna be looking at the camera because I'm reading what I wrote. I was assigned to be the coordinator for a project that I wasn't familiar with. And we had meetings that I led with many stakeholders. One of the women on the call was very hard to get answers out of. She seemed annoyed. And I approached her offline and I spoke with her and I explained that I wasn't familiar with the project and I was hoping that she could support me, and had her explained her point of view, and that really helped in further meetings.
Okay, and that helped. Okay, all right. So folks, what we're looking for here is the situation, the task that Abigail took on in this case, task and action, right? Kind of is blended, that led to a result. Was the response to the point and brief? What do we have? Let's get feedback. So what I heard is that you were given a new assignment, right? Right? Abigail, you want to repeat your response again? Go ahead.
Sure. I was given a change of assignment where I was working on a project that I was not familiar with. And there were many stakeholders on the calls that I led, and one of them seemed very annoyed when she was answering questions that I should know that we were bothering her, type of thing. And I approached her offline and I spoke with her and I explained that I really wasn't familiar, but I wanted to learn her point of view and that I was hoping that she could support me. It took a couple times actually speaking with her, and it got better after that.
Okay. Now, let's get folks' feedback and see what we have. It was a great approach and worked. So you got a good comment there. All right, so let's look at this. Okay, you're getting some thumbs up. So in her response, I heard, again, as I started to say, the situation was the change of the assignment, correct? I heard that the issue was that there was somebody there that, well, almost I'll say I'll use your word, annoyed. Okay, but you picked up on it, didn't you? You see?
Absolutely.
And Abigail could have walked away. She could have just talked about that annoyance with a colleague.
Well, I did that too, but
Well, we are human.
yeah.
Okay. It's okay. But the point being is that you took action. You took action. And that action was that you actually reached out to that person. That's what I heard, Abigail, right?
And reached out to her offline.
And so you didn't confront her in public, which
Right.
would have exasperated the situation. Okay, so she reached out in public. I like that Leanne said you didn't take it personally. I like that. You did, and you know what, Leanne, you're right. She didn't.
No.
She showed a level of professionalism here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and Abby, what I really like, if I can just say, is that, you really were concise and it was very clear, the situation, the task, the action, the result. Now, somebody asked in the chat, what was the task? I didn't understand. Well, a task doesn't mean that someone told you to do something. It's sort of like what you saw as what the task should be. And you described it, right? The task was you need to resolve this conflict or resolve this potential issue. That is the task. So there was a question in the chat. That's why I just wanted to
Right.
talk about
And
Yeah.
task and action
Yeah.
is sort of interchangeable, right? Because in this case, she took on the task of putting herself in action.
Yeah.
I think we can clearly make a case as when we apply STAR that we can make a case that that's kind of how we used start in this manner, right? So
Exactly.
she gave herself the task of putting herself in action. Okay. All right. Now, folks, reflect on your own responses. How did you respond to this question? Did you showcase a success story? Was your story a story where you took on action to resolve a potential conflict? Okay. And of course, it has to be truthful. I always say because body language tends to give us away. All right. Okay, so can we safely move on from this one? Yes, folks? Yes? Okay. All right. So, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
did reflect.
Can I just ask a question?
Please.
Being that, let's say, you did do action, to, let's say, correct something, whatever, and it still resulted in, not a great result. You just go, okay, well, yeah. So would you consider that necessarily a success?
So, first of all, as somebody who's answering a question, I have the right to choose the story I want to share. That's why I'm saying, folks, now, if the question was, tell me about a time when you had conflict with a colleague and things did not work out. Now I would create a story and say, and my story, and again, I tried. Now, Abby's story could have been, I approached her offline. I did my best. I rose above taking it personally. However, unfortunately, throughout my stay at this organization, I continue to have to work very hard to really try to understand this person's perspective. Okay.
Deb, can I just say that I have another, like the person I really didn't get along with, I hated her. Every time her name was mentioned, I cringe. And I didn't bring that one up because the only way I resolved it is, literally 20 years later, we were on a call together and I realized she's just a person too, but I didn't bring that one up because that doesn't reflect well on me.
Well, I think that you could have used that if it was that question that we just talked
Well, what I
about.
meant when you said that you can choose what you decide to talk about, the other example is better.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And if I may interject again, I'm glad you brought that up, Abby, because when I was in an interviewing mode and prepare all my star examples and stuff, I mean, of course, all these situations came up, right? And some yucky ones and then other good ones. And so it's just natural, everybody, when you're going through everything, that you're going to have yucky ones, for lack of a better word, situations that are going to come up in your mind. And those ones are sometimes more in the forefront, but you need to put those aside because you're interviewing. You're not telling someone, a coworker, you're not telling your partner, you're not telling anyone else that story. You're interviewing. So it is in your control to select which ones, but I just want to acknowledge that of course the yucky ones are going to come up, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
again, that yucky one, to use your word, could have came up when if the question was, tell me about a time you had conflict and you were unable to resolve it successfully. Okay, you know what? If you tell me there never was a time that occurred, I would have to believe that is not the truth. Because it may not be an extreme case, but we all have situations. So again, we could select. This is part of why we prepare. This is part of why we prepare. And there are lots of questions that we can prepare our responses to. Okay, let's go to the next and see how we did. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Abby. Okay, now, all right, let's go to the next one. Tell me about a time when you were faced with a difficult situation and described how you resolved it. Here's what I want to look at. Decision making. How did you approach the problem? How do you handle stress? How effective are your solutions? So reflect back. Remember, you're looking at your resume. That's part of preparation. I'm going back to all my different jobs. I tell you, if I'm telling you about certain competencies that I have, I'm a team builder. I'm a collaborator, okay? This is an opportunity for you to showcase those skills and competencies. So let's write the response to this, and then we'll wait for a volunteer. Folks that are struggling with that task segment, again, think about the task of putting ourselves into action. And maybe that might make it, again, unless you're a project, again, the task is, what's the task? What's the to-do? Okay, the to-do is that I need to call a meeting. And now the action is that I called the meeting.
Sometimes you may need to look at the result first to figure out the task.
Very good, Susan. You're right. You're absolutely correct. You're right. Because sometimes we forget all the good work we did to get to that result. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why preparation we need to reflect on our past work experiences. And of course we do, but what I'm saying, it takes time. It takes time. Okay. Okay, we're having a lot of discussion about the task. Okay. All right, how are we doing with anybody coming forward? Any brave soul? Okay,
Vivekanda.
Okay,
So we have so I'm sorry if
Yeah,
my name. nobody
you're
gets my
close.
name right.
Alyssa, you're good. Yeah, so I'm sorry I couldn't get onto the video. It kind of unstable for whatever reason. But yeah, so on the area of difficult situations, that's actually my job, to fix broken problems. And I always happy to, so many times all these problems comes because different priorities and a lot of type A people in the room. So everybody would like to have things their own way. The way I kind of looked at it is, so there's no single answer for any solution. The way I looked at it is try to figure out what is the solution that they're looking for. So as an example that I had over here is that one of the projects I took over, the previous project had failed and they did not deliver, and it was strategic to the organization. So the client had completely lost confidence in our ability to deliver the project. So this was a $10 million project. It's not small. The way they were looking at it, so the first part we had to do was renegotiate what was an acceptable solution in what amount of time and establish a metric. Once that was done, then there was also a part of managing the risk of having a very rigorous tracking mechanism. And once we delivered that and showed that the first set of milestones or first set of tests were executed, it created a level of trust that I could deliver. And that helped in turning around the project and making it successful.
okay. Can I just ask, when you said they were looking at it, I was just confused. Who was the they?
The customer.
So the customer was looking at it, they were looking at it, and then you okay, good. All right. Okay, lost confidence. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, how did Vivek do? Okay. All right, Jet, you got a thumbs up. I really enjoy how people are responding on chat with their, I wish I could, we could talk about each one of these. This is really great. But I think that the fact that we could look at one person's and break it down and determine, we can then look at ours and evaluate. Okay, nice. Okay, so we're getting nice flow, good example. I like how you started off by saying they lost confidence. Okay, you put it right out there, right? Here was what the situation, that boy, that caught my attention. They lost confidence, right? And when you said the customer, maybe saying that the customer, right, was looking at this and what you had to do. Okay, Jamie, I think that's good. Put some numbers. put some numbers around it. Excellent, excellent, excellent feedback. Good, good. So folks, as you look at your own responses and you look at what you wrote, can you include numbers? Are you clear on what the situation was? Are you owning? Sometimes when I conduct mock interviews, I find that candidates do not own their own work. In other words, they'll say we when it should have been I gathered the team and I put into motion as a result of my evaluation. So take credit when credit is due, and do the we when it's I participated on a team or if I'm driving it. Okay. Nice, Casey, good response. Okay. Are we good? Yes? Okay. Excellent. All right, question 3. Tell me about a time you were faced to make an unpopular decision. Integrity, folks. Do you stand up for your own beliefs? Are you ethical? What factors you take into consideration before acting? So again, each question has something in it where we're looking for, right? The employer is looking for this. It's buried in these questions. Tell me about a time you were faced to make an unpopular decision. Okay, we have any volunteers for this one? Okay, we've got a couple hands raised. Good. We'll give it some time. We have 4 questions in total if folks wonder, because we did promise some response Q&A, so hang in there, folks. I promise we'll get to those questions.
And Deb, actually, because I see the questions, like I've already seen that, I'm glad you decided to keep going forward because a lot of them have been answered
Oh,
through the
have we?
presentation. And so that's good too. And this is
Okay.
this is really, really good, I think.
Okay.
I know a lot of people raise their hands, but Susan, did you want to share?
Sure. I was working for a very large company and I found an issue. I brought it up to leadership. They said, take it. I said, this is what I found. This is what I want to do to fix it. And went forward and I was given some legal directive. Well, my boss actually told me not to do what the legal team asked me to do. Well, now I'm in a moral dilemma. Here's an ethical dilemma. How do I say I need to respect the legal and ethical thing to do that the legal department has asked, yet my boss has told me not to do it. And he said, don't worry, I have your back. I have your back. I said, well, if I struggled with that and I had to do what's right. I ended up having to go over his head, go to the legal and ethics team, let them know what happened and let them handle it because it was way over anything I could have done. But the result from that was that there was a lot of tension between my boss and I after that, but I had to do the right thing.
Okay. Very good example. I would imagine that if you were, let's get the response of others before I start chatting myself. Okay. Thank you, Susan. That was an excellent example of a difficult situation. So folks, how did she do? Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Yeah. 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 I'm going, yeah, because I'm reading these. So I know this, what if you don't have a scenario? So that's a very good question, Abby. So for any question that we are asked, we can always, how would I say, rephrase the question. So for example, you can say something along the lines, well, as I reflect on my career, I don't think it's as much as that I was forced to make an unpopular decision as much as that that a decision that I made in retrospect maybe could have taken into account more stakeholders. And then you could tell me your story. I'm just throwing something out there. I'm trying to say that we don't want to just say, well, there's nothing here. Well, you are telling me that there isn't anything that it was unpopular, but what comes close to providing information to the hiring manager that aligns with this question? So redirecting it in a manner where you're still lined up with the ethical question here. I mean, that's what it's about, integrity, right? So I hope that helps, Abby. Okay. 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 So we've got some good responses here. And we obviously all applaud your integrity there. So thank you. Thank you. It's not easy to do. You ended up having a good result. And it looks like overwhelmingly people applaud that you did the right thing. So good for you.
If I can ask a question,
Sure.
someone just commented that they would not use that in an interview, and I can understand because it showed there was an issue with the relationship after the fact, but would that be a bad example to use in an interview?
Well, there was, okay, so I did notice at the end of your story that did you stay on that job and continue to work with that boss? And that boss wasn't let go, was she? Or he?
No, I was subsequently let go, but it was a blanket layoff. There was a huge, due to COVID, there was a huge layoff, but my boss did not fight for me, and he could have.
Okay, but you continue to work there, and
Yes.
the two of you have, I mean, my sense was that in your story that there was some tension, but you two still kind of lived alongside each other and I will say made somewhat peace with it. I mean, as much as, right? I mean, they didn't get let go for it, did they?
No.
Then I understand that this could have been a very messy situation. So again, we want to be selective of our story. So I can appreciate the comment in chat.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, she did the right thing. The organization didn't put the whole that woman or that gentleman's job at risk. They continue to live together, working, right? Yes, Susan?
Yes. Yes.
I'd say to me, that's amazing that you were able to still work. So I can appreciate the concern, but I think in this case, the fact that you still stayed and she stayed and you still worked and performed, this is where we get to opinion. Now, if I was a hiring manager, I liked that story because at the end of the day, she was able to live alongside this woman. So in my opinion, it was safe. But that's one person. So, okay. All right. Let's go to the next because we did promise some more responses. So obviously we already did all this constructive feedback. We're getting the gist of this. This is awesome. Okay, great, great. It did reflect integrity. So excellent. Thank you. Last question, folks. What was the biggest mistake you ever made and what did you learn from it? What does this tell us? What is the hidden, what are we looking for? Can you admit to mistakes? Do you learn from mistakes? Are you humble and open to learning? Do you tend to blame others or circumstances for your mistakes? Wow, there's a lot buried in this. Tells me a lot. Erin, I'm reading that last statement there. How do you stand up for your opinion and not have an abrasive? Well, this is what I'm saying was the good part of her story. Somehow Abby was. And that's why I said it's, yeah.
But should you always agree with your manager? And I don't want to use the term brown noser, but I've seen that a lot in the corporate world where it's all about everyone is like puppets and they go yes and they all go on the bandwagon. But if you deter from that and stand up for your own opinion, are you labeled like, someone who's difficult or a black sheep or, you know what I mean? Like,
Leadership. Listen, it depends on leadership. Depends on your leader. You know, some leaders, I've had bosses where my boss, well, most of my bosses have been pretty good, I'll say, but when I was working you know, my boss always wanted me to come in and challenge him. But, you know, as a result, because we could have a dialogue around it, you see, he liked that. You know, he wanted that, like, to get tested. So it depends on the culture. I think you have to feel that out.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, I loved working with him because he allowed that exchange. And as a result, we were able to come up with a solution, taking into account different perspectives. But you see, that was the environment. So it depends on who you're supporting.
Yeah.
So in some cases, you're right, you know, shut up or get out or something, you know.
Yeah,
So,
not being negative, but standing up for your own opinion, which, you know, which Susan gave a good example of, but that does make for, I think, a difficult relationship when you go up and over your manager, you know, like the
yeah,
skip level.
yeah. Well, two things. First of all, it was an integrity issue. I mean, she
Yeah.
was going to be involved in something that was not, it appears, legal, putting
Yeah.
herself at risk, folks.
Yeah.
Now, interesting, look at this question. What's the biggest mistake? That could have been used as the biggest mistake.
Maybe.
Okay, right. All right, but it wasn't. So let's go on. Folks, do we have a volunteer for this, please? I think Leanne volunteered. Oh, and Jamie's been holding her hand up too. She had her hand up. But
Okay, let's go with Jamie. I think Jamie's put her hand up for a few other volunteers, so go for it.
yeah, I saw it before. Okay.
Sure, but
All
I'm
right.
happy to, if there's, I've asked questions in a different training. So if there's someone that really wants to go, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, go right ahead, Jamie. Yeah.
All right. So what is the biggest mistake I ever made and what did I learn from it? I was a student advisor while I was in graduate school, and my job was to help submit applications from students to programs that they wanted to attend.
Mhm.
And I missed a deadline for a student's application and I felt horrible. I let my boss know about it, and actually I can't recall which I did first, but I called the program that she was applying to and I explained the situation, and they made an exception and accepted the application after the deadline date. And I was careful to put everything on my calendar from there on out.
I'd say you know how to interview,
Okay.
Jamie.
That was a quick, easy example. Thank you.
Very clear. You're right. It's very clear.
I mean, I do have a little bit of memory issue now, and sometimes I can't 100%, like, I don't remember which came first. Did I tell the supervisor or did I call the program? You know, bad that I can't remember. I don't want to make it up.
Okay, so actually, since you brought that up, Jamie, that you can't remember exactly what happened, guess what? The person who's interviewing you doesn't know, and it doesn't matter. So
Right.
what's really important when you're writing your stories is, like I said, get rid of the yucky ones. And number two is you're crafting your story, right? And then once you do craft your little story, you have to own it and believe it. And it doesn't matter if you can remember this or that or the order, because that can trip, those are things that can trip people up.
Right.
So it's great that you were able to deliver it confidently, even if you didn't remember exactly, you write it all out.
Right. I think next time I won't say, I can't remember what I did first. I'll just say,
But you're allowed to say that with us, okay?
yeah,
I'm
okay.
just,
I just want to clarify for myself.
yeah. You know,
Not
no,
gonna
it's
say it
totally
again.
fine.
Okay.
And by the way, like that wouldn't have had me hire you or not hire you or gone to the next
Yeah.
round. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the process, when I hear from a lot of clients, like it's so hard to write these examples down. And I just wanted to touch on that it is hard to write these examples down.
Right. I'm so sorry. I have an interview today and I just wanted to ask a very quick question. Hopefully it's a very quick answer.
Yeah.
I do have some memory issues and I really want to take notes on my computer at the interview. What's your take on that?
I would let them.
In person, it's in person.
I would, before you say, would you say, would it be okay if I just take some notes? I
Yeah.
mean, just introduce it. You know, would it be okay? I would not say I have memory issues.
No.
You and I,
Yeah.
and the 100 people that are here.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly, that's
Bring the
fine.
disability.
But just be
Yeah.
careful also, because of this, how many notes do you have to take?
Right. That's true.
Because now we're into a different place. So if your memory issues are
Good
such
point.
that, I mean, you're gonna have to take more than the average person. So but I mean, always extending the courtesy, say, do you mind, I'll be taking some notes, just so they know, it's kind of like a courtesy, right? Because you'll be putting your head down. But I'm gonna say, be careful how much you put your head down, but I'm also talking to somebody who's saying, hey, Deb, I got memory issues, I gotta do this. So can
Yeah.
you do bulleted point? I mean, can you just do bullets, not big sentences? I mean, I'm sure you learn how to take sort of brief notes,
Right.
right? You don't have
Yeah.
to, okay.
That's a
Great
really
point.
good point. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. All right, we have some more responses here, all right, but I want to say that concludes this. So I want to give a round of applause to our brave volunteers. I know it is not easy to do this, but we really thought about this presentation today, right, Elise? And we talked about how this can bring value because a lot of information is shared, some already know, but first-time job seekers, what you heard today might be the first time, and again, and if you've heard it before, it reinforces, but again, practice does make for confidence. There is a handout that comes with this. This is a nice summary list. It will be on that handout. Again, if you forgot who I am, I'm Deb Krawiec with Arrow Career Consulting, okay? I do this for a living, and I hope that this has been helpful. So we're here to take some questions. It's so nice to see everybody.
Yeah, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. Really, really great. So we have a lot of people. I'm going to go down and just read the order. If your question has already been answered, then just say my question was answered. Otherwise, feel free to ask questions. So in order, and I apologize ahead about the names. If I pronounce it incorrectly, remember everybody mispronounces my name. Ken Garland, then I think I wrote Marina, Jessica Werner, Jamie, I think you asked your question already, Leanne, then Aaron, then Marcelo, and Lisa. So Ken, then Marina, then Jessica. So Ken, would you like to ask your question?
Oh, my question was answered. Thank you.
Oh, your question was answered. Look
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, wonderful. Marina, did you have your question?
Yeah, my question was about the salary. It was mentioned that it's better to avoid mentioning salary, but what if the interviewer is asked you about the salary, what to say? What is your salary expectations? Very often they ask, and you're like, feel like trapped in this situation. Because I'm from Ukraine and I'm in Montreal, I'm in UB, and I know that many employees, they pay Ukrainians the minimum salary just because we using the situation, and certainly I want to have decent salary, but I'm afraid to say that I want $22 per hour because, they will say, oh, you want too much. How to behave in such situation? If they
Okay.
or if you say, let's say minimum, they will say, okay, we want minimum, we'll give you minimum.
Okay. I see some hands raising, so should we call on the Peggy? Did you you're muted? You're muted. You want me to respond?
Yeah, Deb, so it'd be great if you answer all the
I
questions
will.
because we only have like 8 minutes left
Okay.
here and then we're going to carry and they want to hear from you.
Okay. So
I just wanted to say, you can revert, you can ask back and
Yeah.
say, what is the range this has? You
Yeah.
don't have to answer. You don't have to come up with an answer.
So thank you, Peggy. And as I often know, there's so much folks in the audience that have become subject matter experts on this.
Yes.
So when I run my job search work teams, I just love hearing all the wisdom that people absorb. So I know that there are folks here, and Peggy, that's a great example. Of course, yes, to Peggy's point, we always want to say, please, if you can share with me first. So at least this way, you know what the range is. And if they give you that range, then at that time you can determine if that is within the range. And if they force you to say, well, no, we don't really know, we want to know what you're looking for. Again, what I said is, remember, part of preparation is do your homework and know what the ranges are, because sometimes, I work with clients that come from big companies, and then they come and they're out there in these companies that, because they've been with them a long time, they're paid above what the market is paying. So you have to understand where you fall. Now, two things quickly. You need to know realistically, again, what the market will pay, number one, in your industry, in your area, in that size company, and you do your research. But you also have to have in mind what your bottom line is. And so knowing what the least amount, not because you want to say that's the least amount, but when they give you a range, say they're going to say between 70 and 90. Okay, and you want 80, is it in the range? You could say, well, that falls within the range, but I would like to hear the whole package so that I can make a determination about my skills and experience and the level of responsibility. You want to keep the conversation going, folks. I see amazing things happen with salary when they want you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. And so I'm
Thank you.
getting-
Now I have a clear picture, because I felt always trapped with this question.
Well, I understand you're in a unique situation, but again, you have skills, you have value. If you're under pressure to take a job because the timeline is tight, I understand that's difficult. But again, let's hear it from them first.
Yeah,
Okay, let's hear it from them first. Keep the conversation going. And when the negotiations come, that's when we start with the negotiation. Now, I also know that companies also say, listen, this is what it is, and that's what it's going to be, and can you take it? Because we're not going to go forward after that. I get that too. And that's when, hey, listen, we, again, do our homework, understand what they're saying. And even sometimes I still see a little wiggle room somewhere. Like I've got somebody right now negotiating because he's got to move and he's trying to get a sign-on bonus. So they can't move the salary, but at least they might do the sign-on bonus. I'm waiting to hear if that worked for him. So, okay, so there's a lot packed into this, and I'm trying to be efficient in my responses because I know you're trying to get to everything.
Thank you.
I hope that helped. Good luck to you.
Others are waiting for the responses. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so Jessica and then Leanne.
Okay.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
I can, and I love your picture.
Oh, thank you. My question was, how can I have learning difficulties, and memory issues as well, but learning difficulties in general, along with high anxiety and a host of other things. But how can I, or when would I explain to an interviewer about these and that I would need accommodations to perform the job effectively? Whatever the job is.
Well, sometimes on certain applications, depending on the organization, they actually have you define that up front. And so that's number one. That makes it easy breezy, doesn't it? But in other incidences, it doesn't. And so, listen, think about this like dating. We're just getting to know each other on the first date. You don't disclose everything, right? Because you at least want to get to the second date, because you at least want to know if you're interested to get to the third. Okay? So funny way of putting that, but Richard Bowles actually, if anybody that name sounds familiar, used to reference this as job search in the category of dating. So how soon do I have to put it out there? I would say wait at first. They're going to ask, is there any reason why you feel that you cannot perform this job? Now,
it's funny you say that, because when I was dating before I met my husband, I actually just put it right out there.
okay.
I was very upfront about something like that. So personally, I can't relate to that, but I understand where you're going with it.
But listen to Jessica, look, anybody in this business, we provide a perspective. And so this is a perspective. My perspective is to, and again, depending on the level of I mean, if I have a visible disability, it's pretty obvious. I'm walking in and I have a wheelchair or something. I mean, it's obvious, right? And I know
Right.
there are disabilities that aren't seen. I understand that, of course, that's what we're discussing here. What I'm trying to say is that we want to get to at least the second interview. However, because job search is not black and white, it's gray. And I like to present pros and cons. And the job seeker at the end of the day has to decide what feels right. It's like when I write a resume or what feels right. I'm providing pros and cons. I want you to get to that second interview. And I'm saying that, we might want to keep it a little cash at first and move forward. But and again, because maybe that job, and again, what we're talking about would require a deeper dive in a conversation. Speaking, I mean, I might answer it differently if I was talking to you one-on-one. But broadly speaking, I have to recommend that, listen, the first conversation is just sort of like a get to know you, right?
Right.
That's why,
Okay.
it's like we just said, stay away from salary, we're just getting to know you,
Right.
But again, if I was working with you one-on-one, we would be peeling this onion and going in different places eventually. But it's again, gray area. This is
Okay.
okay. It's gray
Yeah.
area. Okay.
It sounds like you have to kind of feel how things are and
Yeah, because
maybe just wait a little bit.
well, you might pick up a certain vibe from the interviewer. I mean,
Okay.
maybe you're interviewing at a human services organization, right? And there's and there's, already they're set up to understand that, so to speak. I mean, or maybe that person, I mean, there's a vibe also to pick up on, which is what makes it gray area, right? So again, I like to present pros and cons, what you could gain, what you can lose, and job seekers need to take it in from any of us and just apply as appropriate to your journey. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I
Good luck.
appreciate your answer.
Good luck.
Thank you. So Deb, we, and everyone, it's 11:30. So I would just like to thank you, Deb, so much for such an engaging and really, really informative webinar. It was absolutely fantastic. Let's everybody give an applause to Deb. It was great. And I just wanted to, again, tell everybody about the save the date for the next one in 2 weeks on February 13th. Marty Gilbert will be back speaking about marketing yourself to your next career. So wanted to thank you again so much and see you guys next time.
Okay. Been my
Thank
pleasure.
you. This was great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.